in terms of the situation here in Nigeria and citizens being able to effectively hold governments accountable, have we managed to do so? Are we doing what we need to do to play our own parts in the democratic process?
Thank you. All right. Let me say good morning to everyone here present, and I think we're getting there. We're getting there because, thank you. It used to be different. I've worked in the social media sector for the last 12 years, holding government in the executive, legislative, and judicial accountable in Nigeria through social media, and I can tell you that nothing has worked as much as social media in the last 10 years in Nigeria in terms of holding government accountable, because it's beyond their reach. It's accountability beyond borders. And I set up a news website which is well known to everyone here at Sahara Reporters. It became effective because first, we were able to reveal a lot of hidden things about government. And secondly, it was beyond their power to reach us when they would have loved to emasculate us. But I also would say that it has its own downside, to the extent that if you think social media has all the power and you don't do what is necessary next, then governments start to adjust to social media, become numb to the noise from social media. So you must move from revealing everything, holding them accountable on social media, and for you to have the best results, you have to drop your devices and get on your feet. And that is why social media was powerful in Egypt, but until Egyptians dropped their devices, they couldn't have the Arab Spring, which eventually became a liability because it was not micromanaged very well. The same thing with Tunisia. In 2012, in Nigeria, when we had occupied Nigeria, it was social media that pushed for it. It was social media that was driving it and organized it, and it was social media that delivered the outcome to the rest of the world. And it was a big blow to the ruling class at that time. But they were able to manage it because people relied too much on social media, and when they were supposed to move on that last day that could have led to Nigeria's own equatorial spring, it didn't happen because that number of people who were on Twitter did not come out on the street to help realize what could have been a major seismic change in Nigeria at that time. So I don't want us to think about over-reliance on social media, but I think it's very powerful. It's giving voice to a lot of people, and it's helped us to push back on governmental abuse.
You have a history of student activism from your time at UNILAG, and while there are many criticisms of activism and activists in recent times, as well as organizations in universities, do you think there are any lessons that ordinary citizens can take away from the kind of involvement and engagement that you had during your time as SUG president?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if there was anywhere I developed the knack for sharing information, it came as an SUG president at the University of Lagos, because every Wednesday we had to explain to the students what's going on campus, politically, within campus and outside campus. So we created a very conscious and well-educated student populace that were willing and ready to fight whenever it was necessary. So, and we already had a defined enemy outside the gate, which was the military. In fact, when I was at the University of Lagos, a tank was permanently stationed in front of the gate of the university until I graduated. So it was easy to mobilize students around the enemies. But this time around, I think, for me, everything we learned as student leaders is what made it possible for me to operate, for example, a media company that became very successful, because I had already come with that activist mindset that information is not only power, information had become life. And we're in an information age, but that knack for using information as a powerful tool to fight against oppression was something that I developed on campus. So when the internet came my way, I didn't have any doubt in my mind as to how best to use it to confront our leaders in Nigeria from far away New York, where I was based for a long time. So sadly, we don't have student union leaders like that anymore. I mean, we have student union leaders who are hawking around awards to criminals in the country today. So I don't think there's anything to learn from the present crop of student leaders that we have, who are appendages of either school authorities or governors of their states, or who are running around trying to be richer than their oppressors. And the problem, nothing can be worse than, you know, an oppressed person who is jealous of his oppressor. So that, so much so that you want to even be worse than that oppressor. So if anybody wants to learn anything, you have to go back to the 90s and see what we did to military rule. I remember when Abiola was going to be buried, we stood in front of his house. The military governor of Lagos State at that time, Marwa, came in his uniform. We asked him to go and remove his uniform. He actually respected us, went and removed his uniform. Before he could come to Abiola's house, he had to come in civilian clothing, even though he had over 200 soldiers behind him. Today, it's very hard to find a student leader that can even stand in front of Boy Scouts and resist them.
Now let's talk about some of the methods in which citizens can hold government accountable. They have talked about social media. Toya mentioned recall just briefly, but recalls are an option that are available to citizens, even though we have yet to have a successful recall process in Nigeria. In the past, this administration's time, the past 3 years, we've seen 3 or so individuals who a recall process has started. One that has gone the furthest has been the one involving Senator Nino Milani, but it did not go any further than that. Why do you think, okay, I'll start with you, Yale, Suleiman, I'd like to get your answer on this as well. Why do you think a process such as recall or petitions, or even going to constituency offices and demanding that certain actions be taken on certain things, why do you feel like we're not doing enough of that? And I'll give you a quick story. Somewhere in India, one small village in India, they have a municipal official who did some kind of contract and messed up the sanitation of the small town. So that day, they all carried all of their trash and dumped it in front of his house. The next day, sanitation issues were taken care of.
Yeah.
Why are we inactive?
Maybe you should also have heard about the Ukrainian leader who was dumped in a dustbin as well. See, we, as much as we are progressing in use of modern technology in fighting back, a lot of our people are still very complacent and docile as well.
Does that have to do with a lack of education?
It's not lack of education. The question we should ask ourselves is, are we educating ourselves, or we're just getting literate so that we can work for somebody? Those are two different things. But when you talk about recall, if you look at the constitutional provision for recalling somebody from the Senate, it's almost impossible to recall anybody. And then you have a very, very corrupt judiciary who is waiting on the wings to market injunctions against a recall process, which they did in the case of Dino. Not even perpetual. Even the interim injunction he needed to frustrate it was available to him. He just needed to push the recall process by a few days. And he succeeded in doing that because the judges were waiting in the wings to get that done. But you look at what social media did in the opposite. There was a guy who wanted to muzzle social media in the Senate. We fought back. If we left it to his constituency, nobody would have recalled him. But we saw that as a crime against us. But even look at the social media week. Invite Saraki here. This place will be full because all of even the social media influencers are in his pocket. There was a time I was invited here. I was supposed to be a speaker. One of the social media organizers told me that because they don't want me to insult Saraki, they removed me from being a keynote speaker so that Saraki and Dino could come in. This is about 4 years ago. They told me he was fighting me physically here. So the problem is not only on the outside, it's also about people who call themselves media influencers or social media. They sell their soul to these politicians. They will help Dino, mold opinions that are not true about him. They help Saraki, they help Buhari. They are all over look at, for example, people who said they don't want, not too young to run. They are the same people, mostly, who run and start calling themselves articulators. They didn't even support the young people they asked to run. They are supporting the same old people they said should not be running. You can't find them behind any major young candidate. The people who say, well, not too young to run. So, you have this whole problem. There's a problem of mindset, there's a problem of values in our society. It's also a problem of greed, because everybody is just waiting on the wings to be on the take. And the moment you have a society where young people are not developing consciousness in a way that their consciousness is driven by their conscience and not money, we have a problem. Nobody can recall anybody, because you are the one who wants to help the guy who is going to be recalled to get what he needs. More people are interested in how many cars Dino has than how many constituency projects he has implemented in his state. In fact, I remember during the time he was being recalled, he took his car to his village and they had a culvert beside the car, and the cost of the car was more than the amount of money he spent on the culvert. It was on social media that they then called him out, and he rushed and built his constituency office. So that's the problem, and we've been monitoring it. Except we change that value process, we have nowhere to go. We can't recall, we can't do anything. But we have a chance in 10 days again to change that entire process. There are 51% of voters are young people. They have a chance to retire the old brigades. But you see what they are doing on social media with it. If Atiku says to Davido, you are the king of music, he gets 40,000, 450,000. What does Atiku even know about? He probably has never heard Davido's song before, you know. But those are the kind of very fickle things we spend our time on instead of spending our time on substance. When I'm your president, no, don't worry, I'm a presidential candidate, don't worry. You will never have to suffer to get a PVC, because your PVC will be digital in 4 years. And we should be able to vote online, both in Nigeria and people in the diaspora. But if you vote these same analog leaders back, you suffer again in another 4 years.
So on the next question that was asked was about justice and the rule of law, the justice system, in terms of being an impediment to holding our leaders accountable. He referenced the current case of the CJN Justice Walter again going on right now, and I'm very sure there are many cases that we see here in 5 minutes that we can put that sort of make it look like whoever is in power is using the judiciary as a tool that is not actually making it easy for individuals to hold government accountable. And I think eventually we can direct it to you again. Please go ahead and answer.
So what you have in the Nigerian judicial system is not justice, it's just us. It's only meant for a few people. The judges, there's something they say in Nigeria, that you have to hire 2 lawyers. The one that knows the law and the one that knows the judge. It's the one that knows the judge that can win you the case. The one that knows the law is the one that will make the noise. There is no justice system in Nigeria, that's the truth. Justice have gone up for sale. I would say it again, I was the first person to issue a red flag on Sahara reporters about the Chief Justice of Nigeria when they found millions of dollars in his account. The EFCC issued a statement that is not true, that we lied. When it was convenient for them to go after Onohe, they suddenly found the documents because they're in possession of it. But they need compromised judges to handle the election petition tribunals that will be coming, because that is the biggest market in the judiciary. The moment you're an election tribunal judge, you are going to make your billions from the cases that are coming up. That's what you're saying. But it's up to Nigerians, and I'll say this again, this is an opportunity in a few days to get rid of the old brigade and put in place a justice system. It's not only the judicial justice system, it's the social justice system that will guarantee you a breathing space in this country called Nigeria has been strangulating you.
The other question was about students voting. Like she said, many students have registered around their schools, close to their schools, but ASU is currently on strike. And it's very likely that that strike will not be called off before the students, before we go to the election. So what do we do? I think the bigger question at the end of the day is, what do students do? Some people, as adults, have said, wherever you voted Thursday, travel there. I don't know how convenient it would be for many students to go back to the cities that host their schools in order to vote.
There is a new generation of Nigerians that are going to turn 20. We call them children of democracy. They are the secrets to defeating the old brigade. We have our own political party, started from the ground. or the bottom, and that party has an agenda, and we have programs, and we have manifestos, and we don't see similarities in so many of our programs as these other young people. We're not particularly young by United Nations definition of youth. We're actually grandpas. Kingsley Magalu is 55 years old. I'm 47. I'm going to be 48 on February 16th, the election day. And Fela is about the same age. So I decided that since they don't agree with me on my programs and they don't seem to also agree with themselves, it's better to lead the coalition that's already in existence, which is a coalition of the oppressed that form majority of our party members. So that's where we are. And then we have 10 or 9 days to go. I don't think I'll be wasting my time attending meetings instead of campaigning hard. And to your words, formidable force, I think we've been able to show that we have the most formidable organization on ground to tackle and wrestle power from the old guards. Okay. Yes.
My mom is of the opinion, or most people, or some people are of the opinion that most presidential candidates, or any candidate in particular, is like a boxer going into the ring.
That's right.
You always want to off and puff and say this and say that, but then Yoruba will say that the blind man that says he will stone you definitely has a stone in his hand or under his feet.
Yeah.
So what do you think is your joker going into this presidential election?
I think it's a secret decision by a lot of people to vote in the right direction, and these people are not lousy, but they are very determined to ensure that Nigeria is put in a different space, that we move in a different direction, and we're able to rescue our country from those who have made it uninhabitable. I think that is likely where the joker is, and the fact that I've traveled to about 34 states, including Federal Capital Territory, received everywhere massively, and to find that the party we created in 5 months has become the fastest growing political party in Nigeria as we speak, to the extent that everybody has come to the conclusion that apart from the 2 major legacy big parties, the only other major party on the ground that is making waves is AAC, African Action Congress. So that the joker is someone between the secret voters and the potential of our political party and message.
Okay. So what would you like to say to the youth that are somewhat apolitical going into this election? Of course, some have not voted, some have not even registered to be voted and to vote or have their votes counts. What's your advice to the youth as far as politics in Nigeria is concerned?
I just ask them to turn around and look at the pie charts released by INEC of registered voters. For the first time in the history of this country, we have a block vote of young people who constitute 51% of voters, registered voters in the upcoming election. If they think right, if they do right by themselves, this is a joker that we need to move Nigeria away from the old brigade and take this Nigeria on a sprint to serious development. And as you can see, the atmosphere here is different from what obtains outside, because this is youth, this is the future, this is about knowledge, it's about the economy of the future. Every other thing out there is analog, and this is where Nigeria belongs. Nigeria should look like this, our classrooms should look like this, our hospitals should look like this, our roads should look like this, everything should be digitalized. And that's what I hope that they see, and I hope they understand that before it's too late. Because after this, these old brigades are going to reorganize themselves and they would never be so vulnerable again.